President Biden has sent a strong and clear message to the makers of electric vehicles. EVs are the future. Don't go against them. This bold step comes at a time when the EV market is facing some challenges. However, on the other side, he's pushing for this electric future, rolling out lots of incentives to motivate everyone to start using EVs. But here's a shocker. The middle class doesn't like EVs, and this is causing problems for car companies. This trend can be seen in the sales of companies like Ford and GM. Ford is reportedly losing money on each EV it sells, and GM is also not making profits on their electric cars. Even Tesla, which is a leading company in the EV market, has had to lower its prices. The slowdown in EV sales raises questions about the sudden shift in public opinion. Why are people turning away from EVs, and is there something misleading about them? If you were under the impression that EV sales were thriving, you might be surprised by the reality. President Biden is working hard to stop the EV market from failing. Here's what is actually exactly happening. People still prefer traditional gasoline cars and aren't keen on being pushed into using EVs because of political decisions. However, the government is pressuring car manufacturers to switch to EVs, even if it might have a big impact on the middle class. Before we get into the details of this major change, let's look closely at the actions Biden has taken to promote EVs and reduce the use of gas engines. Over 3,000 car dealers across the United States are asking him to slow down with this initiative. They argue that there isn't a strong market demand for these EVs, which seems unusual. These dealers represent a wide range of car brands and are part of a large group concerned about how EVs are selling. They noticed a lot of initial excitement for EVs, but the actual sales haven't lived up to the hype. The Biden administration aims to have 50% of all new car sales be electric by 2030. This is a significant change from the current situation, where only about 4% of cars sold are electric. However, these dealers have observed that EVs are not selling well, despite price cuts and various incentives. This is a worrying sign. And now we will see how it will potentially cause big car companies like GM and Ford to go bankrupt. Let's talk about the challenges that car dealers are facing with EVs and why these issues matter to all of us. There are several key points that the dealers are bringing up, and each one is crucial to understand the current state of the EV market. Firstly, one of the biggest hurdles is the lack of charging stations. For many potential EV buyers, this is a significant concern. If you're thinking about switching to an electric car, you might wonder, where will I charge it? Unfortunately, right now, the infrastructure for EV charging is not widespread enough. This makes it challenging for people to rely on EVs as their primary mode of transportation, especially for long trips. Secondly, the overall energy system isn't fully prepared for a large influx of EVs. The transition to EVs isn't just about the cars themselves, it involves the entire energy grid. To support a vast number of EVs, we need a robust and reliable energy grid that can handle the increased demand for electricity. Right now, we're not quite there yet, which adds another layer of complexity to adopting EVs on a large scale. Another important aspect is the cost of EVs. Currently, EVs tend to be more expensive than their gasoline counterparts. This price difference can be a barrier for many people, particularly those who are budget conscious. The travel range of EVs on a single charge, while improving, still doesn't match up to the range of gasoline vehicles. This limitation, known as range anxiety, is a real concern for drivers who are used to the convenience of quickly refueling their gas cars. In 2022, most new cars sold were gas-powered, about 93%. EVs are still more expensive and less efficient. Big car companies like Ford and GM are thinking twice about their EV plans. Ford cut back on a new battery factory in Michigan by 40%. GM changed its goal of making 400,000 EVs in a certain time because EV sales are slowing. Both have stopped making some electric truck models. Now, let's focus on the batteries, which are a crucial component of any EV A key concern here is the source of the materials needed for these batteries, such as lithium and cobalt. Interestingly, China produces 75% of such batteries. This reliance on one country for essential components of EV batteries presents a risk, particularly in light of current financial and geopolitical tensions. If there were any disruptions in the supply chain, it will greatly affect the global availability and cost of EVs. Dealers warn that pushing EVs too quickly without the proper support and market interest will be a problem. They want a more balanced approach that takes into account market readiness, consumer preferences, the maturity of EV technology, and economic implications. They express concerns that moving too quickly without adequate support and alignment with market interests could lead to challenges in the automotive sector. Biden's administration is working hard to make EVs a big part of our future. As we previously mentioned, they have a plan to make half of all new cars sold be electric by 2030. They're investing in EV infrastructure and putting a lot of money into building charging stations. But that's not all. They're also giving people who buy EVs some tax breaks, which means they can save some money. The government is also helping companies that make these cars and the parts for them, especially in the United States. This is to make sure that these cars are not just good for the environment, but also good for our economy and jobs. On top of this, they're looking at ways to make sure there are enough materials to build these cars. This includes things like the batteries that are really important for EVs. By doing all this, they're hoping to make it easier for everyone to use electric cars in the future. However, critics argue that these efforts are more about making a political statement than addressing the high cost of EVs. Although the government is investing heavily, like giving Ford about $9 billion to make EVs, while this might seem like a huge boost for EVs, it's important to consider what this actually means for you, the consumer. Here's the thing. Just because the government is pouring money into EV manufacturing doesn't directly translate to lower prices for EV buyers. Yes, these investments help companies like Ford expand their EV production capabilities, but the cost of developing and producing these vehicles is still high. EV technology, especially battery technology, is expensive, and these costs often get passed down to consumers. GM and Ford are pausing or cutting back on some of their EV projects. It's a tricky situation. While EVs are seen as the future of transportation, they need to be practical and affordable for everyday people. Car dealers are trying to sell EVs that need to move off their lots by lowering prices and offering good leasing deals. However, even with these discounts, EVs are still more expensive. For example, even with government subsidies and tax incentives, the price of an EV, like the electric Ford F-150, can still be significantly higher than its gas-powered counterpart. So, while tax credits can help, they may not be enough to bridge this gap for many families. EV sales are slowly gaining momentum, reaching 1.8% of global vehicle sales in 2023. This growth is fueled by the introduction of more affordable options and enhanced performance features. Despite these advancements, EVs still face challenges compared to gasoline cars and dealerships, where they often remain unsold for longer periods. This situation is a concern for dealers as unsold cars translate to lost revenue. The global EV market's growth, with Tesla's Model Y leading in sales, indicates a shift in consumer preferences and market dynamics. But the transition from gasoline to EVs is still ongoing and presents various challenges. Former President Donald Trump has expressed concerns about the rapid shift to EVs. He prefers traditional gas engines and is skeptical about electric cars. Trump thinks EVs are too expensive and not practical enough, and he worries about their impact on the traditional auto industry. He's also concerned about the economic effects, job security, and the U.S. role in the global car market. Trump highlights that EVs are costly and mentions concerns about their battery range. Meanwhile, President Biden continues pushing for more EVs by setting big goals for EV sales. The car market will suffer if car companies focus too much on political goals and ignore what customers want. There's a risk that a big car company will fail if this continues. The question is whether EVs should be the only focus or if hybrid should also be considered. Do you think EVs are the future of transportation, or should there be more focus on hybrids? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you find this discussion interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insights and updates.